You Might Be the Killer is a 2018 horror comedy directed by Brett Simmons, and it stars Fran Kranz and Alison Hannigan. So this movie is about a guy called Sam who's on the phone to his best friend Chuck, played by Alison Hannigan, and he's having a conversation with her while he's in the woods getting stalked by a killer, and he's trying to find out who the killer is and if he's going to survive. So Chuck, she works in one of these stores like Forbidden Planet, just a kind of gamers store, and she's got all these books out and trying to help him find out who the killer is and how to survive. But quite early on, about 20 minutes into the movie, we find out from the title that he is the killer, and throughout the movie we have to piece together how he became the killer and why he's doing what he's doing. And it's basically about him finding this mask, kind of like the Loki mask from The Mask. When he puts it on, it becomes a different person, but unfortunately for Sam, when he puts it on, it becomes a killer, and he goes around and he goes around and kills the camp counselors in the film. Now, I think part of this movie was wasted on the way that they filmed it. It was a unique idea. It was actually an idea that they got from Twitter. It was these two guys, I don't know if they're the writers, but there's two guys that had a conversation back and forward. I haven't read the conversation because I didn't want to spoil it for myself, but this whole conversation that they had is basically the script to this movie, and then they decided to make a movie about this conversation that they had. So if you want to read the conversation, have a look at it on Twitter, but I've just not read it. But it is a unique idea from Twitter. But for some strange reason they film it like it's an 80s movie. Now it's set in modern day because they've got mobile phones and stuff like that and LED screens, so I just didn't quite understand why they tried to make it look like a nostalgic filled 80s horror movie. I think they were maybe trying to give some nods to the 80s slasher movies that were set in the woods like The Burning and Friday the 13th, but it just felt a little off. And for them trying to be unique, they're bringing out a movie in an 80s nostalgic horror way when a lot of movies are doing that right now. To me, the funny nods to all the 80s horror slasher movies felt a little too obvious and forced, and because of that, they didn't work for me. We got to know the victims and the characters in this film a backwards kind of way. Now, the film does take place in different timelines. It goes back and forward, but I think this film would have benefited more if we got to know the characters first and then it just continued on. But the way that they've done it, they were killing these characters off and we didn't care about them because we didn't know anything about them. And then when it goes back in time, we kind of start to feel for these characters and get behind them, but we know their fate already. And because there's so many characters, we could have actually thought that some of them could have survived, but it turns out they didn't because we already know who died from the beginning of the movie. Most of the kills were very typical of an 80s horror movie, but some of them were pretty creative. But the only issue that I had with the creative kills and the typical kills was they were happening in the dark or behind something. And now I understand that they have budget constraints, especially for a movie that looks like a low budget independent horror movie, but anytime we wanted to see some creative kill, it was obscured by the darkness and we just couldn't quite see it as well as we wanted to. If you go to 1 hour and 4 minutes in this film, it's a scene ripped directly from Halloween H2O. I think if you want to do a horror comedy that is a good nod to all the 80s slasher movies, I think if you look at a movie like The Final Girls with Taissa Farmiga, that does it in a great way. That's quite scary at times and it's quite fun, and you get to know the characters and you love the characters. I think You Might Be the Killer, they do it in a cheesy way, in a forced way, and it looks like they tried to rush this movie out and it just tried to be something that it's not. Basically, it's not a great horror movie, it's not the worst horror comedy that I've seen, but if I had to label it anything, I'd say it is a forced horror comedy. So have you seen You Might Be the Killer? If you have, as always, leave your comments down below, let me know what you thought of it. Overall for me, I didn't really like it, but I'd like to know your thoughts. Anyway guys, thanks a lot for watching again, thanks for subscribing, I'll see you soon, bye bye.